Hey, conspiracy brother.
Hey, how's everyone doing this evening? Episode 23 of Uncomfy Truths. We are here on, what is this? The 13th of August?
Yep,
It's been a lot.
13th of I wish it was August. 13th of April,
April,
2024,
right?
election year. Yeah, baby. So
Yeah,
what was
I,
that?
uh, I don't know why I said August. It just must be the A month might have got me, but
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see the countdown coming. I was a little thrown off at first, but I'm like, you know what? Let's just chop it up and get things going. We're back for episode 23. A whole lot to talk about. Obviously from the thumbnail, we're gonna get into some things. Um, but yeah, I'm glad we survived the eclipse, by the way, because there's a lot of hoopla, myself included, about this April 8th eclipse, what's gonna happen. Um, it's good to kind of at least tell about what happened because we're gonna kind of discuss that a little bit. But I think a lot of people get so caught up on, well, this exact thing of disaster didn't happen on this date, so that was conspiracy, ha ha ha. And it's like, well, no, there were some shady things that happened, but just because it doesn't happen, the exact thing doesn't happen on the day, doesn't mean that there's other shady stuff going on. I just try not to get too wrapped up on this exact thing is going to happen on this day. A lot of the real conspiracy theories that get caught up in that's when people go like, oh, ha, ha, ha. So we're going to get into that, as well. But yeah, conspiracy brother, anything you want to chime in on before we dive in to the topics?
uh, yeah, like you said, there were some things that did happen, and there's always the potential. So you you do need to kind of just keep an open mind and see if there are any signs that would lead toward anything, abnormal or you know uncommon occurring. I'm sending you a couple articles that would be kind of relevant from my perspective
Mm-hmm.
on what we were talking about today. Um,
I've got a screen share ready too.
yeah, but yeah, it didn't happen exactly as you thought or that you had read or whatever, but that doesn't mean that it isn't going to happen or that something interesting is out, uh, it's completely off base. So,
Yeah, big
we'll leave
facts.
it there.
Yeah, because it's kind of like as you're pulling up the screen share, it's like a lot of the same people that said, "Oh, Brexit can never happen. They'll never exit the British currency. Oh, Trump will never get elected. Look what happened. Oh, that new COVID, that scary coronavirus over in China, they'll never come over to the U.S. Look what happened. Oh, there'll never be lockdowns. That'll never happen. Mass, they'll never force vaccines on us, and so on and so forth. So I just like to say that the same people who love to just knee jerk defend the establishment narrative and talking points, they think that just because this some exact thing didn't happen on that date, that it's all hoopla. When you just look at most of these normies' history, they're always wrong on the wrong side of stuff. Because it doesn't happen when they exactly say it is. So anyway, our first topic is once again the solar eclipse. As you can see, a lot of people, even on the far right, like I don't stand with any one school of thought. Like as soon as you hear the first conspiracy theory or the first thing, like, oh, this is exactly what's gonna happen, blah blah blah. Like, so there's those on the far right that go a little too far. But then, like I said, at the same time, you shouldn't be like dismissing people just for asking these questions or asking why is NASA launching these space rockets? Why is this CERN program going on? So I just like to point this out, conspiracy brother, because you can already see like a lot of the establishment corporate media, it's like they already had to have it queued up, ready to go. Like, oh, like just ready to just sort of like dismiss questioning, dismiss any sort of free thinking. And you're kind of beaten into submission with all these sort of just gaslighting articles where they kind of just overblow from both sides basically. But conspiracy brother, if you wanted to, this is the first one of these articles, NASA articles. Did you want to maybe read this first article or just maybe touch on it?
Okay. So this was interesting. When I found this out, to me personally, maybe drop some. Maybe maybe everyone else will agree, maybe not, who knows. But it's interesting to me. So let's see. NASA Wallops launches 3 rockets during eclipse in Virginia. And then it says 3 Black Brant 9 sounding rockets launched from NASA Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, April 8th, 2024, during the solar eclipse. The rockets launched for the atmospheric, what does that say? Perturbations around eclipse path, a PEP mission to study the disturbances in the electrified regions of Earth's atmosphere known as the ionosphere, created when the moon eclipses the sun. The rockets launched before, during, and after peak local eclipse time on the eastern shore of Virginia.
Hmm. Okay, and we got this
And this
other one.
is just going to let us know about it. NASA to launch sounding rockets into moon's shadow during solar eclipse. NASA will launch 3 sounding rockets during the total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024, to study how Earth's upper atmosphere is affected when sunlight momentarily dims over a portion of the planet. The atmospheric perturbations around eclipse path, APEP, sounding rockets will launch from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia to study the disturbances in the ionosphere created when the moon eclipses the sun. The sounding rockets had been previously launched and successfully recovered from White Sands Test Facility in New Mexico during the October 2023 annular solar eclipse. They have been refurbished with new instruments and will be relaunched in April 2024. The mission is led by Aro Barjataya, a professor of engineering physics at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Florida, where he directs the Space and Atmospheric Instrumentation Lab. The sounding rockets will launch at 3 different times: 45 minutes before, during, and 45 minutes after the peak local eclipse. These intervals are important to collect data on how the sun's sudden disappearance affects the ionosphere, creating disturbances that have the potential to interfere with our communications, which was something you talked about being a concern on the 8th of April. You talked about, looks like one of the links came up. the uh the show
Oh,
notes.
sorry. Uh,
It's okay. But you talked about a disruption in communication because of the eclipse. So it's interesting that NASA was trying to study that um, specific thing. It says the ionosphere is a region of Earth's atmosphere that is between 55 to 310 miles, 90 to 50 kilometers above the ground. Quote, it's an electrified region that reflects and refracts radio signals and also impacts satellite communications as the signals pass through, end quote, said Barjataya. Quote, understanding the ionosphere and developing models to help us predict disturbances is crucial to making sure our increasingly communication dependent world operates smoothly, end quote. The ionosphere forms the boundary between Earth's lower atmosphere, where we live and breathe, and the vacuum of space. It is made up of a sea of particles that become ionized or electrically charged from the sun's energy or solar radiation. When night falls, the ionosphere thins out as previously ionized particles relax and recombine back into neutral particles. However, Earth's terrestrial weather and space weather can impact these particles, making it a dynamic region and difficult to know what the ionosphere will be like at a given time. It's often difficult to study short term changes in the ionosphere during an eclipse with satellites because they may be at the right place or time to cross. They may not be at the right place or time to cross the eclipse path. Since the exact date and times of the total solar eclipse are known, NASA can launch targeted sounding rockets to study the effect of the eclipse at the right time and at all altitudes of the ionosphere. As the eclipse shadow races through the atmosphere, it creates a rapid, localized sunset that triggers large scale atmospheric waves and small scale disturbances or perturbations. These perturbations affect different radio communication frequencies. Gathering the data on these perturbations will help scientists validate and improve current models that help predict potential disturbances to our communications, especially high frequency communication.
the plot
The
thickens.
AP the AP-EP rockets are expected to reach a maximum altitude of 260 miles, 420 kilometers. Each rocket will measure charged and neutral particle density and surrounding electric and magnetic fields. Quote, each rocket will eject four secondary instruments the size of a 2-liter soda bottle that also measures the same data points, so it's similar to results from 15 rockets while only launching 3, end quote, explained Barjatia. These secondary instruments on each rocket were built by the Embry Riddle, and the fourth one was built at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. In addition to the rockets, several teams across the U.S. will also be taking measurements of the ionosphere by various means. A team of students from Embry-Riddle will deploy a series of high-altitude balloons. Co-investigators from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Haystack Observatory in Massachusetts and the Air Force Research Laboratory in New Mexico will operate a variety of ground-based radars taking measurements. Using this data, a team of scientists from Embry-Riddle and Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory are refining existing models. Together, these various investigations will help provide the puzzle pieces needed to see the bigger picture of ionospheric dynamics. This is very science heavy. What is
Yeah.
a sounding rocket? When the APEP sounding rockets launched during the 2023 annular solar eclipse, scientists saw a sharp reduction in the density of charged particles as the annular eclipse shadow passed over the atmosphere. Quote, we saw the perturbations capable of affecting radio communications in the second and third rockets, but not during the first rocket that was before peak local eclipse, end quote, said Barjataya. Quote, we are super excited to relaunch them during the total eclipse to see if the perturbations start at the same altitude and if their magnitude and scale remain the same, end quote. The next total solar eclipse over the contiguous U.S. is not until 2044, so 20 years. So these experiments are a rare opportunity for scientists to collect crucial data. The APEP launches will be live streamed via NASA's Wallops official YouTube page and featured in NASA's official broadcast of the total solar eclipse. The public can also watch the launches and blah, blah, blah. So you probably could watch the replays on YouTube, but
Right.
that's
Well, I can't wait to get off of work to look forward to that. Just go home and watch a live stream of a solar eclipse. But yeah, so conspiracy brother, what you got? What you got? On this? What's your overall takeaway from this past solar eclipse and NASA doing their little shady uh operations?
well, I'd like to know what a sounding rocket was. That would really be helpful to me, I think.
All we
Because
know is that it's a sounding rocket is able to carry science instruments between 30 to 300 miles above Earth's surface. These altitudes are typically too high for science balloons and too low for satellites to access safe. Oh, yeah, I read this part, right? Uh,
I don't know.
uh,
Maybe. Doesn't sound familiar. But um I was watching Rocco's Modern Life today. You remember that
classic.
show?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
That was always one of my favorites. And
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
watching it today, and it's the episode where Rocco's a satellite crashes into Rocco's kitchen,
Hmm.
and he's got to get it repaired. And he says, his landlord isn't going to repair it. Heifer asks if his landlord is going to repair it. And he says, no, my landlord said it's my responsibility. That was the first time I remember hearing that Rocco didn't own his home, which makes sense that he would be renting it. But
Right.
you never saw the landlord. He wasn't really a character that I could ever recall. That was one of my favorite shows. But that was interesting. So a government employee, black shades, black suit, was a fox, was standing over the um, wreckage. And I wanted to try to find the clip, but I couldn't. And I thought it was funny.
Hmm.
He says, oh, it's nothing to worry about. It's just a weather balloon. And then that had me thinking about the stuff with China a while back where they said it was a weather balloon and the U.S. was saying it was a weather balloon.
Hmm.
And so Rocco says, so you guys going to repair it? Is the government going to repair it? And he says something like, not a chance. And they called for like a big crane or whatever. And it picked up the satellite and took it
Hmm.
off. And so, obviously, this is what they've told us. We have no way to know unless we have some kind of science background or access to high level scientific materials, research materials,
Hmm.
what any of that means or what impact any of it has in truth. Um, but sounding rockets, what do they look like? How big are they? Let's
Hmm.
see.
That is the question. All right.
You know,
Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, I kind of already sort of beat it with a dead horse. Kind of my thoughts on things earlier, on how it's okay to have a healthy amount of skepticism when it comes to NASA and their kind of shady ties to Nazi Germany. When it came to their early formation, look up into that. We're not going to do a whole homework assignment, whole dissertation on that, but definitely any viewers listening or watching, look up the early formation of NASA and their ties to Nazi Germany, I believe, or something like that. Yeah, and just know that while
Definitely not.
something may not happen exactly how it's supposed, somebody may claim on a certain day, that doesn't mean that there's other steps being put in place, and it never hurts to be a little extra prepared. I just think, like, a lot of people more on the far right, they went a little too off the deep end with certain conspiracy theories, like it's gonna happen, this is gonna happen on this day. And then that just leads to the establishment and their goonies to say, look, see, they're crazy. Well, we've been right about 4 or 5 other things over the past few years on a lot of different stuff. And it doesn't always happen exactly on that day in the exact same form, but it's just good to keep a healthy skepticism. All right, moving forward, get into OJ Simpson. Once again, RIP. What I wanted to do is just kind of go through this article. It's kind of like the latest news. OJ Simpson died a couple of days ago, I think yesterday, age 76 of cancer. So obviously, very complicated history that we're about to get into. I know, conspiracy brother, I got a tab pulled up on the Furman tapes you discussed. So I want to just read through this article, then we can kind of give our general thoughts on OJ Simpson, his legacy, however complicated it was. Then we can kind of get into more of the nitty gritty. So this from AP News, Associated Press, kind of leans a lot more uh, left bias, but stuff like this they can at least report the facts half right. So from AP News, if OJ Simpson's assets go to court, Goldman and Brown families could be first in line. All right. So OJ Simpson died Wednesday without having paid the lion's share of a $33.5 million judgment the California civil jury awarded to the families of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. That $33 million in lost wages, I don't know about that. Acquitted at a criminal trial, Simpson was found liable by jurors in a 1997 wrongful death suit. The public is now likely to get a closer look into Simpson's finances, and the families are likely to have a better shot at collecting, if there's anything to collect. Here's how the next few months may play out. The probate process. Whether or not he left behind a will, and whatever that document says, Simpson's assets will now almost certainly have to go through what's known as the probate process in court before his 4 children or other intended heirs can collect on any of them. All right, y'all, black folks got to get those wills and trusts. So what happens? Different states have different probate laws. Generally, the case is filed in the state where the living person, when they die. In Simpson's case, that's Nevada. But if significant assets are in California or Florida, where he also lived at various times, separate cases could emerge there. Nevada law says in a Nevada law says an estate must go through the courts if its assets exceed 20,000, or if any real estate is involved. And this can be done within 30 days of the death. If a family fails to file documents, creditors themselves can begin the process. A strong claim to death. Once the case is in court, creditors who say they are owed money can then seek a piece of the assets. Goldman and the Brown families will be on at least equal footing with the other creditors and will probably have an even stronger claim. Under California law, creditors holding a judgment lien, like the plaintiffs in the wrongful death case, are deemed to have secured debt and have priority over creditors with unsecured debt, and they are in better position to get paid than they were before the defendant's death. Arash Sadat, a Los Angeles attorney who specializes in property disputes, says it is 100% better for the claimant to have the debtor be deceased and their money in probate. He said his firm had a jury trial where their clients got a $9 million jury award that the debtor appealed and delayed endlessly. He did everything he could to avoid this paying his debt, Sat said. 3 or 4 years later, he died, and within the estate cuts a check for 12 million. That's a 9 million plus interest that I had accrued over this time. The executor, no, I'm saying that wrong. Executor or administrator of the state has much of an incentive to dispense with debts than a living person does. That's why you see things like that happening. Sadat said. But of course, that doesn't mean everything. Doesn't mean payment will be forthcoming. I do think it's going to be difficult to collect for them to collect. Attorney Christopher Melcher said. We don't know what OJ has been able to earn over the years. Neither Sadat or Melcher is involved with the Simpson estate or the court case. What assets did Simpson have? Simpson said he only lived on his NFL and private pensions. Hundreds of valuable possessions were seized as part of the jury award, and Simpson was forced to auction his Heisman Trophy, fetching $230,000. Goldman's father, Fred Goldman, the lead plaintiff, always said the issue was never the money. It was only about holding Simpson responsible. And he said in a statement Thursday that with Simpson's death, the hope for true accountability has ended. What about trust? There are ways that a person can use trust established during their life, and other methods to make sure their heirs get their assets in death. And if such a trust is irrevocable, it can especially be strong. But transfers of assets of others that are made to avoid creditors can be deemed fraudulent, and claimants like the Goldman and Brown families can file separate lawsuits that bring those assets into dispute. All right, that is the end of the article. But yeah, a lot to unpack there. I just thought I give kind of like just a different perspective, just from kind of the legal side of just this fallout of his death. But yeah, we can kind of keep it, general as well. So, conspiracy brother, if there's anything you want to say about O.J. Simpson in general, just from the trial to his legacy, the good and the bad, and then we can kind of unpack further. A lot to
I
chop it up.
mean,
You know.
I my my best memory of OJ honestly is just the Naked Gun movies. I used to watch those a lot as a kid, and I didn't know he played football. I didn't, I found that out. I think my dad told me when he saw me watching like Naked Gun 33 and the third or something.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Yeah, OJ Simpson used to play football. He was the first running back to get 2,000 yards in a season, and they only played 14 games or 12 games or whatever when he did it." And that number by itself, being so young, might have been like, I don't even know if he had gone on trial yet. So
Right.
I mean, the trial was 96, right? So I was 8, or if it was
Well, technically,
97,
the murder
I was
was
5.
94. I think the trial was 95, I believe.
Okay, so if it was 95, then I was 7. So, I don't really remember, like there was no context to that 2,000 yards. Like, there was no way to really contextualize it. But yeah, he won the Heisman Trophy. He was in the Hall of Fame. I believe he's in the College Hall of Fame. Played, the majority of his career with the Buffalo Bills, and I think the last year or so of his career with his hometown team, the San Francisco 49ers. But you know, they tend to have a way of shedding whatever light they want to shed on people, the media. And so, when you see the story, it's accused murderer, it's acquitted murderer, or they bring up the fact that he was somehow in some way linked to a murder that involved his wife and a friend of hers, or boyfriend, or whatever. And so, that's always just really, really interesting, when you've got living people who are suspected of committing violent sexual acts against children and adults. For example, this is not to, not to do a one-to-one comparison, but they
Mhm.
don't bring those up um, at every mention. You know, um, you look at the way, for example, um, the whole situation with Prince Andrew being, at the very least, a sexual deviant is not talked about. We talk about the Epstein list, and so there always is a way to try to draw attention to somebody um, when the media seems to want to. You can look at even the way that they deal with Trump, right? They always call Trump former president, but they still call Obama President Obama. They still call Bush President Bush. So it's a deliberate attempt to manipulate the way that you perceive him versus everybody else, like he was an anomaly. Even when Biden set up the office of the president elect, I haven't been conscious of the political process for every president in my lifetime, but I don't recall ever seeing that, right? And
Me
so,
neither. Yep, that
yeah,
I remember that. Yep.
and it was strange. So
Mhm.
OJ got off. Whether and I mean that Mark Furman. I didn't know where you were going to go with the story, so we don't have to really go through that article unless you want to. But OJ got off for whatever reason, um, and he was acquitted of a murder. And you know, it is what it is. I mean, Emmett Till, the lady who admitted that she lied about Emmett Till,
Mhm.
still lived a long, prosperous life. Um, and I think she just recently died in her 80s or 90s, a couple
Mhm.
years back. And so, sometimes the justice system may do things that we think are wrong, right? And so either we want to improve the justice system for everybody, or we like to leave it the way it is. But you can't pick and choose when you want to be happy and when you want to be upset about the justice system. Either it's fair or it's not fair. So, um, I have my grievances with the justice system, um, but at the same time, by the metrics that we used for all types of atrocities that have occurred around this country um, and this world, right? Even looking at the global perspective with the invasion of Palestine or the invasion of Gaza, um, injustice anywhere. What did Martin Luther King say? Dr. King, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, or something to
Yeah.
that effect.
Yep.
And so, to be cliche, but that's what it is. If you're upset about OJ, work to make the justice system more fair and balanced and transparent. Make it so that a person who is rich enough can't afford to buy his way free. Make it so that when somebody is, you know, admitting to a murder or being complicit in a murder, even if decades later, they are found responsible or at least retried over it. So that's it for me.
All right. I was gonna ask you one little hardball question. I mean, we could wrap it up, but
Okay.
basically, do you think OJ did it? And if he didn't do it, who do you think did?
So
Did OJ do it?
I I don't I don't think he did it by his hand, right? I don't think by his own hand he did it. I think it's very likely um I think it's very likely that he had a hand in it being done. Maybe he paid somebody or whatever. But I also heard that she had a drug habit, and so it's possible that some of the drug cartels slash gangs had an interest in her death. Then I also heard the theory that it could have been OJ's son who did it, his older son from his previous marriage. And the theory for that is that, normally when somebody is accused of murder or tried for murder, they try to establish the guilt of someone else or some other party. And he never did that. He just, maintained his own innocence, but he never tried to assign guilt anywhere else. And so they say the theory is that it's because his son is the one who likely did it. And so in order not to implicate his son, but I think it's possible all three of those are, when you look at the way, for example, maybe because I think him orchestrating it is possible more than him doing it by himself.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people misunderstand what is involved in murdering somebody with a knife or a blade. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember when my second child was a newborn, and I was washing a whole chicken I had in my sink, and I flipped it over onto its back to wash the back because I was gonna, cut it into pieces. And it looked so much like my daughter that I froze, and I couldn't move. I called my wife, and she had to actually come. Like I was frozen in my spot in the sink, and so I think, even in rage, I would be more inclined to believe that he strangled her or beat her to death than that he stabbed her to death, because you don't expect to beat someone to death. You could just be punching and hitting, and then, or even if you strangle somebody, you don't necessarily expect to do it to death. When you stab somebody, it's a very deliberate, action. So I could see him. He had the money to do it. I could see him paying somebody to kill her and kill Ron Goldman. If like Chris Rock had that joke, he had to pay all this money and like spousal support, and I don't know if child support or alimony or whatever. So I could definitely see him taking that risk. And then, about the drug thing, I don't know enough about her personal life to be able to say definitely that, it could be drug related. I just believe it's plausible. I mean, you're in Hollywood or whatever. You at war. OJ Simpson's ex-wife, he was really kind of, uh, you know, a who's who, a member of the who's who. Um, and so you like to party. You don't have any other responsibilities, and so I think it's possible that that was what happened. And then the last thing with his son, I heard his son had some mental problems. I think I looked it up before, but I can't remember offhand, so I don't want to poison the well. But that is a compelling idea that he never tried to finger anybody else, essentially. So maybe one of those three scenarios is possible. Maybe.
All right, time will tell. Well, it's already been 30 years, so everybody's gonna have their theories or different takes on it. And today we may never know, but very complicated legacy he's left behind. Good and the bad. Um, all right, moving forward, I want to do a little wild card. So I know you shared a bunch of other articles, so I have a few of them here. Let's see here, refresh the page. Uh, so we can get into, I think, some of the YouTube videos you sent me related to like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Matt Walsh. I got a few of those lined up. I got the Reddit one too.
Okay, I wanted to send you another one. I wanted to send you another one too.
Did
But
anything else
yeah.
you want to expound upon with Mark Furman with this Reddit link? Or
Well, um, not really. I mean, besides I'll say, um, besides the fact that he was recorded admitting that the LAPD released not released but tampered with evidence, engaged in police violence, or what do they call it? I'm drawing a blank on the phrase now, but it's police brutality. And when he was on the stand and they said, "Did you tamper with evidence in the O.J. Simpson trial? Did you tamper with any evidence?" And he basically pled the fifth. And then he's got all this video recording. It's a recording, not a video. It's a recording of him saying the N word and all this stuff over and over. So I mean, let's say O.J. did do it. You got a cop, who is the perfect tool that the defense could use to establish their innocence. And so there it is. You know.
yeah, a lot of pieces to the puzzle. A lot of pieces to the puzzle. Let's see here. Nah, it's weird. I should have thought I had the links. Oh no, yeah, they're down here. So yeah, so these are the newer links that you sent me. So we can either kind of go through these, or I have a lot of the YouTube links from the Daily Wire people queued up.
The new one, we can save some of these because I would like to bring some of these up. It's definitely going to be a bit controversial for YouTube, but we're reading articles, so I think we
Okay,
should
we
be
got
safe.
Rumble. That's what we got Rumble for.
Yeah, but we I mean, we should be fine either way because they're just articles we're reading. So, but we can go. Did you want to hit on the World Central Kitchen, or did you
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to talk about? Yeah, so
Yeah,
we'll do that, and then
let's
we'll
let's
move
go
on
shoot
to.
over that, and then we'll do like the little Daily Wire drama next. But yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So this just in. Obviously, this happened a couple weeks ago, but it's good to kind of like take a step back, get all eye view on it. So I wanted to just pull up the general news, and then we could kind of maybe pick and choose a good article to expound upon. But those guys have already known by now. There was an aid organization called World Central Kitchen, and there were, I believe, 7 employees killed from there. So these are just like humanitarian workers that go behind, war torn lines in Gaza, obviously, and of course Israel and IDF. I believe they ended up taking responsibility. There, I think they denied it initially, but these 7 workers, got killed in the drone strike. So um, oh, so this is straight from the World Kitchen's website. Um, so we can maybe read this one.
okay.
All right. So this is from the World Kitchen organization's website. World Central Kitchen is devastated to confirm 7 members of the team have been killed in an IDF strike in Gaza. The WCK team was traveling in a deconflicted zone in 2 armored cars branded with WCK logo in a soft skin vehicle. Despite coordinating movements with the IDF, as it was leaving the Deir al Balal warehouse where the team had unloaded more than 100 tons of humanitarian food aid brought to Gaza on the maritime route. This is not only an attack against the WCK, this is an attack on a humanitarian organization showing up in the most dire of situations where food is being used as a weapon of war. This is unforgivable, said WCK CEO Aaron Gore. The 7 killed are from Australia, Poland, United Kingdom, a dual citizen of the US and Canada and Palestine. I am heartbroken and we are appalled that we, the World Central Kitchen, and the world lost beautiful lives today because of a targeted attack by the IDF. The love they had for feeding people, the determination they embodied to show that humanity rises above all, and the impact they made in countless lives will forever be remembered and cherished, said Aaron. The IDF says it is carrying out an in-depth examination at the highest levels. Yeah, right. to understand the circumstances of the tragic incident. World Central Kitchen is pausing our operations immediately in the region. We'll be making decisions on work in the future. All right, so that's straight from the website. We got these other articles, The Nation, Rutgers. Nation, I think, is pretty left leaning, and Rudders. But yeah, conspiracy brother, feel free to give us your take. You don't have to like read this article, but yeah, feel free to give us your thoughts on this whole situation. It's really bad. It's really things went from bad to worse. You know.
Yeah, so the World Central Kitchen was founded by the Spanish chef Jose Andres. He, I guess, kind of brought. He was like the first major celebrity chef to come to DC, I guess. And
Hmm.
so he's really clicked in with a lot of politicians. And so the joke is that's why Nancy Pelosi's so upset, and so many politicians are upset because he's their friend.
Hmm.
Um, but the World Central Kitchen, involved. I think they were the second largest food aid organization after UNRWA, which was defunded by Israel and the United States government. Um,
Are they kind of similar to UNICEF as well?
World Central Kitchen.
Well, like along the same lines. The UNICEF is a humanitarian, or that's a group I hear about a lot.
Um,
But I haven't heard of World Central Kitchen until this happened, unfortunately.
yeah, UNICEF, I believe, is let's see, it's a yeah, it's the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. Um, so
Hmm.
maybe because they re- provide assistance to children all over the world. But World Central Kitchen is founded by this chef. Um, it's his NGO, and
Hmm.
so it just provides meals and stuff. And he is like I said, he's very connected in Washington to politicians because he was like the first big celebrity chef in DC, or at least modern celebrity chef like 30 years ago. He introduced tapas. That's really like something that they and so apparently seven um, WCF workers or WCK World Central Kitchen. Sorry, I'm thinking World Central Food. World Central Kitchen workers were riding in 3 trucks or something.
Hmm.
We can read the article to kind of get more specifics, so that way I'm not fumbling over what's happened. But um, and they were targeted by Israeli military, and the Israeli military eventually killed them. 7, I think. One was an American Canadian dual citizen. 2 were British. One was um, Polish. I think
Hmm.
one was Hungarian or Bulgarian. And the Polish government is actually opening up an independent investigation, and there is some um, desire for the UK to do the same. The US is not going to, I'm sure. I haven't heard anything about them even being interested as a government. But the Israelis say that they thought that this caravan of vehicles was somehow affiliated with Hamas. And so, you know, they set this attack. Um, Even though they got clearance ahead of time to take that route, and they knew they were going to be there, and it was like a prescribed route um, for them to take.
Hmm.
And so, the biggest thing, like a lot of people are saying now, people care because these are white people or Europeans or who have been murdered. And so now it's real, it means something, and they're not just brown people anymore. And, I don't know if I believe that to be the case because
Hmm.
um, the US still don't care. You know what I'm saying? To be fairly honest. I mean, Nancy Pelosi has come out
Right.
and I believe she condemned it, but like I said, she has a connection to Jose Andres. And so it could be as much about this happening to a friend of hers and his business, or nonprofit than it is about the American citizen. And this is, it brought up an interesting thought to me. Due Dissidence does a lot. It goes into detail about this, and I want to say
Mhm.
Nick from RBN too. But what's interesting to
Yeah.
me
Shout
about
out to
all
them.
this, yeah, what's interesting to me about all this though is when you sit and think about how the U.S. was in an uproar for Alexei Navalny, the Russian citizen who um, the media, the U.S. media, the Western media had reported was killed in a Russian prison by Vladimir Putin. So a Russian citizen who was killed by the Russian president is what the story is. Yet American people are being killed by U.S. allies, Gonzalo Lira in Ukraine, and this individual who I'm not sure what their name is, and we can maybe look for their names just so we can try to pay a little bit of respect to the memory of these individuals who
Mhm.
risked their lives in an active war zone with um, I think at this point in the game, we can all accept that Israel is a um, bloodthirsty, belligerent nation who, you know, takes no prisoners and sees no limitations on its aims to uh, eradicate Palestinians from its territory. Um, but um, what I was saying is, um, you have no outcry from the U.S. government, right?
Yeah.
American citizens are murdered by our allies who we fund, and um, nothing. There's nothing said. There's nothing done. There's no legitimate intent to stop it or to rectify it or for someone to pay for it in a meaningful way. But when Russia, when China, when North Korea, when Iran, or whoever else that the US doesn't like does whatever they claim, the US claims that they're doing, um, there's an uproar. And so, this should just show how little these organizations, and when I say organizations, I mean the government organizations, president, Congress, the FBI, the CIA, whoever, the military, how much they really care, right? And this is it was interesting. I think Nick was talking about this, but we're talking about how they're trying to convince people to vote for Joe Biden and saying, he Roe v. Wade or whatever. And it's like, what has he done that would convince you that he would do anything if given another 4 years? Like, what legitimately has he done? And you can't even say things are going well enough that him continuing to be president would be a net zero on our economy, on our everyday lives. You know what I'm saying? It would be worse. It would get worse. So he doesn't even have the benefit of banality, right? Where you can just say, hey, nothing's going to change. It's just going to be because at the rate of nothing changing, things are going to get exponentially worse. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the Israeli government, they're out of excuses. Um, and I got a video from the what is it, the World Happiness Index that I like to bring up too. I think it's relevant to this, but I'll let you give your thoughts just on this situation because I've kind of talked a bit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would just say that once again, the chickens have come home to roost in a whole new different way now. The game has changed. Those that were just so gung ho on Putin and he's the war puppet and he's the warmonger and he's on the war path. Well, it's been Netanyahu. And once again, there's a sector of people I got to keep calling out that before October 7th, they had no context of anti Semitism. They had no, these are the same people where we were talking about the George Soroses of the world, the who's the other guy? The Klaus Schwabs, who once again maybe happen to have a certain Jewish influence that, World Economic Forum with its ties to Israel, with its ties to a lot of the US elites, we couldn't talk about none of that. You were anti-Semite, you were anti-Semite, you know? And now that, once again, since October 7th, once again, I'm not for the Gaza, they continue to do this genocide, which is out of control. I woken up more to about just the corruption of Israel as far as the Israeli government and the IDF and everything Netanyahu's doing, and basically could care less about what Biden thinks. And they're just going to do what they're going to do. And I will say this, though, this is where I kind of give that's why I'll give Biden a little bit of a pass. Because guess what? If Trump was reelected and Trump was president right now, Trump is still on that pro-Israel, we stand with Israel. I think he just threw something on social today. So a lot of this heat that a lot of these leftists are like, oh, Biden's so terrible. Well, guess what? Trump is in office. Trump would be the devil as well, because Trump would have to bend the knee to the same Israel regime, if you will. And once again, like a lot of these elites and these Democrats are starting to kind of sing a different tune, because they know that the pushback is starting to become so big. And this was just another light under the fire. Now you have, I think while the Israeli hostages and those that were killed, there were Americans in there. Now you have a dual citizen, uh, um, citizen who was killed, like one of the WCK members. And I'm still kind of ticked off because the Afghanistan withdrawal, all these pro-Palestine leftists had no smoke for Biden with that, where there were 13 American soldiers killed in that attack at the airport as they're trying to rush everybody out. They had no smoke for all those Americans killed. It just seems this hyper focus on Palestine. So once again, I think an Israeli baby is just as precious as a Palestinian baby, as an African baby, you know. But once again, the Israeli regime is out of control clearly. And it took other people like, like a Alex Jones or Mike Adams at Natural News, and a lot of even people like Ian Smith, who I follow, and they're mainly people on the right. But even they called out really Netanyahu and the corruption of Israel, and how they once again try and stay under that flag of, if you question us, you're anti-Semitic. I'm glad people are finally waking up to that, because we've been calling out George Soros and Klaus Schwab and others who happen to be of that persuasion, not because of their race or their religion, but their behavior, and they happen to be that. So once again, I'm glad people have been waking up these past 6, 7 months, 8 months since October, but a lot of us been preaching this for a while. And Netanyahu and Israel is just part of the larger regime who hide behind the anti-Semitism veil. And even Biden, can't even, and the Democrats in office now can't even, they have to start to acknowledge, like, whoa, holy shit. So yeah, so this is just very sad, unfortunate, but once again, this could have been prevented if we really, if Biden had gotten there, if Biden took it enough time to stand up to Netanyahu. Because I will say, if Trump was in office, I don't think Netanyahu would be running as wild right now with this Gaza genocide. Let's just be real. While Trump would, I think, while Trump would kind of bend the knee in some aspects, or compromising, I don't think there'll be the same sort of Netanyahu. I don't give two shits, you know. So that's just sort of my personal opinion. But once again, this is just a result of the endless uh, Israel regime continue to do what they do. But unfortunately, U.S. just they have too much. Israel has too much on the U.S. and the elites that are keeping them from having any leverage to make them stop. I'm sorry, but Netanyahu's worse than Putin, y'all. And there's going to have to be some sort of intervention. There's got to be
Well,
something at the table. They got to come to the table.
and
If not, they're going to have to step up, and they're going to have to take Netanyahu out or something. This is getting real.
well, and I think it's important to remember there was a Palestinian American journalist, I forget her name, who was murdered by the IDF. And
Yeah.
again, you know, the Biden administration or anybody. Nobody cared. So um, I think I agree with you. I think if Trump was in office, he still would support Israel, like you were saying earlier. He would still be willing to give them funding and support because that's the essentially that's the Israel lobby controls our government. And I want to bring up an important point, just like a side note. Maybe I should
Mhm.
start writing a notebook. But um, so um, but um, just writing some notes so I can remember where I was. But I might have forgotten what I was going to say. But we're talking about Trump being a different alternative to Biden because you were saying earlier, they would both, both would fund Israel, right? And I agree. The situation is though that left voters, can make that. Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. Let me. I wasn't saying this yet, but let's. So the thing we have to remember with these distinctions, right? When we talk about Jewish, Soros, and those kind of connections, uh,
Mhm.
what happens is when we make those kinds of generalizations, and I'm using we generally, not me and you specifically, but
Mhm.
when we make those kinds of generalizations, what is easy for the ADL and other groups to do is say, "Hey, you're
Mhm.
being anti-Semitic because you're trying to point to some type of Jewish global cabal," and it's just like um, when you look at people who belong to a church or any organization, right? I was going to say the Masons, but you know, they kind of get a lot of heat for supposedly being. I mean, they call themselves a society of secrets, but of being some type of you know underground network who controls uh, the world government and things like that. But when you look at any organization, there are levels of information, right? And so we may all belong to a church, but everybody at the church doesn't have the keys. Everybody at the church doesn't count the tithes envelopes.
Mm.
Everybody at the church doesn't have access to the kitchen or the AV room, right? But we're all members. And so it's just like that within the Jewish community, within the black community, within the Asian community. When we generalize the groups, and again, I'm not saying that you're doing this or that I'm doing this, but I just
Mm.
mean in general. What we have to try to remember is that you can be a part of a group and still not be in those upper echelons of decision making. And this is what the ADL and those individuals in the Jewish community know. They know that if they can get people to associate Jewish people with badness or some type of corruption, that they can completely dismiss the argument because you say,
Yep.
well, hey,
Mhm.
this is anti-Semitic. When it's good to understand that there are a lot of Jewish people who disagree with Israel and what they're doing.
Mhm.
There are a lot of Orthodox Jewish people who disagree with the existence of the state of Israel
They
and
just
what
wanna
the
work
government.
hard, mind their own business, and just be left alone as well, you know?
Exactly. And so, it's important for us to keep that in mind. When you make generalizations about black people, there may be some who fit that description or that stereotype, but there are many who don't, majority who don't. And so you can just completely dismiss any commentary when you always play to the generalization. Speak specifically about the people you're speaking about. So if it's the Jewish community, it is those elites. It is those elites. You know, it's impossible to run from the fact that Jewish people make up at most 1% of the United States population. And they have disproportionate representation in government, in media, in entertainment, in finance, in science, and academia, right? Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it does show that there is some type of disparity, right? I looked up a while back how many sports teams are owned by Jewish people, and there are a lot, disproportionate amount, right? And so to believe that you can have this, definitionally, we would call it a cabal, right? Um, let me pull up my trusty dictionary just so I can make sure I'm not a secret political clique or faction. So I would think that if it isn't secret, it is still a political clique because you know when you have a group of people who share a common background and also have a similar social status, you're going to form organizations. Just look at the WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Those people have, it is notorious that these individuals, occupy the upper echelons of American society. That's a clique. It's a cabal, right? Whether we know about them or not, it is a cabal. And so it's the same in this situation. I believe that there are, I had a list. I had a list of a meme of all the different people in the Biden administration, in the cabinet who are Jewish. Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, and there were, there was more. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and so when you have such a concentration of a group of people within the upper levels of our country's government, it is bound to influence the way the government behaves. Anthony Blinken said himself that he goes to Israel not, not as or not only as a representative of the United States, but as a Jewish person. You can't do that, right? As a Secretary of State, I'm black as far back as I can go. My people have come from this country. So if I were to represent America on the global stage, my only frame of reference would be America because that's the only country I have an allegiance to. I don't have an allegiance to a different country or continent, right? I don't have ties, to any other country or continent but the United States. And what we see increasingly happening via immigration, uh, legal and illegal, is a dilution of the value of Americanness by people who only see Americanness as a means to an end and not an end in itself. Right. And so kind of gone a bit out. But now getting back to, did you have any comments you wanted to make? Because feel like I've been talking a lot today, and I want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to say something if you feel so inclined.
No, no, brother, you hit the nail right on the head. I think you kind of covered all the basis of the points because I think it's always good to kind of while we react to the general happenings of these developments in the Middle East, with this IDF strike, it's good to kind of remind viewers of the macro level. We're just kind of living a time where we just react. This thing just happened, react right away. Don't wait for information. And even Dan Bongino, who I don't agree with on a lot of stuff, former Fox News contributor. He had his own show. I listen to his podcast every now and then. But he even calls out people on the right who's like, bro, quit reacting to everything right away. Like give it like 24, 48, 72 hours so you just come up with a conclusion. And not only that, not look at just the micro reaction and what this means, but look at from a big picture macro standpoint. Always giving the context about Israel and Palestine. Always giving the context on the global elites and what they've done and how they may be of a certain persuasion, but it's about the behavior in their activity, not to cast it as a whole group. So I'm kind of with you on that. It's just good for we always kind of give that context for people out there who are just always so quick to just react on the micro scale. So yeah, I think we kind of said all we need to say there. Next, we have a little bit of Daily Wire drama.
What
Um,
look, before we move on, I just wanted to get back to what I
yeah.
was saying.
Oh yeah,
It's
sure,
good
sure.
to
Mhm.
good to but like when you said, Trump would still support Israel, and so there's no difference between Biden and Trump in that regard. I agree with you. The only thing I would say, and as a little bit of pushback, not really pushback,
Yeah.
is if you disagree with Biden's actions, you still have the moral obligation to voice your opinion however you can. So if that means you
Hmm.
don't vote for the guy and Trump does win, then that's Biden's fault. Biden didn't do whatever was necessary for voters to come out and
Hmm.
support him. He didn't take the positions that they agreed with, you know, because they continue to try to present this as a you just got to get Joe across the finish line. And
Right.
and that's not my responsibility. It is Joe Biden's responsibility to offer me things that I like
Hmm.
that I would want to vote for. Just like this. If there was somebody running for office as a Democrat and Trump was running as the Republican candidate, and the Democrat option said, "Hey, I want to make the only legal marriage in the United States gay marriage, and I want to mandate that all children have to be given gender classes and be made to wear clothing of the opposite sex, you know, every so many times a month, and be called by a different a name that is different from their gender, and explore whatever. I wouldn't vote for that person, even if Trump was running against them, right? Because that person wouldn't align with my ideology as a father, husband, parent, citizen, whatever. And it's the same with Joe Biden. It may not be to that extreme, but whatever he's doing as a politician and has done for the last almost 60 years does not align with my ideology, my personal moral code. And so I'm not about to give you my vote just because Trump is supposed to be so bad. That's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
so, you know, you may not. You may, as the expression goes, be getting from, out of the frying pan and into the fire by saying, "Hey, I'm not voting for Joe Biden. Let Trump win if he's gonna win," and whatever. But at least you have made your position known and stood on it in this situation. And so we have to be, you know, proud of people and supportive of people for that. And I'm not saying that you weren't, but
Mhm.
I'm just saying, that's my only pushback. If
Oh yeah,
if
all good.
if
Yep.
Biden if Biden can't get the votes, shame on him.
Yeah. Good said. Well said. All right, so now we about to pop over. We got a little bit of Daily Wire drama going on. Obviously, by now you guys know it's been a few weeks now. Candace Owens recently, I think, left or got fired from the Daily Wire, and a lot of that's been ensuing with her, just asking questions. I want to say Candace Owens is like super pro Palestine, but at the same time, she's not like pro Israel, and has the right to ask questions. She interviews people from different sides, and and this was just I believe a the Hodge twins here. Once again, they I don't agree with all their stances, and they got a little bit of kind of right wing buffoonery, kind of from a right wing side going on. I don't really rock with. It seems just very kind of artificial. They're funny. They got like they got like this. They say things that are funny. It's just funny and ignorant from a far right standpoint. But it's still funny stuff. And they throw in some kernels of truth. So this is their reaction to I think one of there was like a rabbi who did like Jew face on himself, which I don't even know. I should have said they. But yeah, conspiracy brother, you want to set this clip up? What we're about to watch here, or you want to
Um,
watch part of it? Yeah.
so this is Rabbi Muli Botea is his name.
Yeah.
And he's been the one who's been most vocal in defense of the Israeli government and the IDF. I guess he was like at one point in time a spiritual advisor to Michael Jackson. He sells sex toys with his daughter.
What?
Yeah, he's weird. He's a weird guy. I'm aware of him through debates he had with Christopher Hitchens back in the day. Christopher Hitchens is was an atheist, debater, writer, columnist, and they would have debates just about various topics having to do with God and religion. And so he's kind of really gone off the deep end. Candace Owens, like you said, I wouldn't, I'm not a fan of hers particularly, but I wouldn't say she's pro-Palestinian. What she's tried to express is that, innocent lives, the lives of children,
right,
should be saved on both sides. And even that small concession of the humanity of Palestinians is too far for Zionists, for hardcore Zionists. So they wanted her fired. She's fired. And so this rabbi is attempting to mock her. And I can't remember. I guess she said something on the Breakfast Club or something. I didn't check because it really wasn't, important to me. And so the rabbi has come out and said all this stuff, attempting to discredit her by showing the absurdity in what supposedly she had said of the stereotypes of Jewish people. But what it ends up doing is making him look bad, and his argument and his supporters just look terrible. So
yeah. All right, so we play the clip.
Yeah, got a show for y'all. Got a damn good show. Okay, a lot of Jews are like celebrate Candace getting fired. Yeah, and shines a light on that true character. People, the Jews that do celebrate this, shows that true character. Especially for a person that they deem has been anti-Semitic, but she has not been anti-Semitic. Yeah, I think stood up for innocent women and children that by the tens of thousands have been killed in Gaza. That's for some reason, some Jewish people think that Semitic. The term Semitic belongs to them. It does not. It belongs to anybody that lives in the Middle East or that land. Palestinians are Semitic people. Muslims are Semitic people. But for some odd reason, Jewish people think they're the only Semitic people, which gives them the right to call you anti-Semitic, even though you're standing up for another group of Semitic people. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to show y'all this rabbi. It's hyperbole. Overstatement. Yeah. An exaggeration. They're doing the same thing. Yeah, they're doing the same thing the gay people do. Oh, men don't have dicks. Oh, you're homophobic. Jewish people do the same thing. What you say? You killing innocent Palestinian children. Oh, man. You can't stand for our country? Oh, man, you're anti-Semitic. Same logic. That's how they do it. All right, so I'm going to show you this rabbi. Mm-hmm. I have no idea why he did what he did. It's really childish. I think it's safe to say he shouldn't be deemed as a rabbi. Well, you don't say that. You're a Negro. I mean, when I think of a Baptist preacher or Jews are different preacher or anybody, a pastor, they have to be an exact representation of what they represent the Bible. That he's not a good representation. That decorum has to be respectful. Yeah. Ain't nothing respectful about him. So he's okay. I'm gonna show you this video. He posted on his Twitter. He's so proud of himself. He calls himself a Candace Owens Jew. What is that? In turn, Candace Owens has never made any remarks disparaging being anti-Semitic towards Jews. Yeah. Disparaging them for being Jew. Yeah, it's never happened. But he misrepresents what he said, and this is the video he decided to put out there. Where was the day of celebration? We feel bad for Owens that she lost her job, so I figure with her image of what Jews are supposed to look like, why not validate her? I'm dressed up as a Candace Owens Jew. Now, this is not a Christian child, it's Jewish child. But if it would be, I got my Christian blood. Spicy, delicious. I got my Jewish nose. I have filth, because Jews are all filth. And more than anything else, what does he have? What's a matzah? I don't want to finish the whole thing and not mix it into the matzah. So can someone just bring me? She did say that I was kidding. She liked that tweet. Drunk on Christian blood. So let's do it right. Oh, so good. So good. So good. So now, Fufu, performance today, but our enemies fall, my brothers and sisters. This is the way they want us to look. I'll do it for one night. I'll indulge them. If it floats their boat, why not? What about my album? Okay. Everybody.
All right, let's pause it right there before we get the Hodge twins reaction. But conspiracy brother, wanna unpack this? Just the mess of what we just saw.
Well, sure. I mean, you could just see if there was any attempt to, refute anything. And I mean, this is just he in the beginning of the conflict, so almost 6 months ago now.
Yeah.
He was really mild mannered. He was really trying to make arguments to justify the Israeli position. And I mean, increasingly, he's resorted to these types of tactics. And I think Kurt Metzger and Jimmy Dorshow called it lamp shading or something like that. When you do the thing that everybody says you're doing in a way that try to make it seem like you're not doing it, or like you're getting caught. Basically, like that Michael Rappaport video when he was supposedly on the phone undercover when they said, "Where's my check?" I've done all these pro Israel videos. Where's my check? And he's getting caught, recorded, and so it seems like, oh, he really is doing it. And so maybe this is some form of lamp shading, where he's attempting to draw attention away from what is going on by saying it's so absurd. Look how absurd it would be if this is who we really were, what we were really doing. Because I haven't seen anything about her saying that they drink Jewish people drink the blood of Christians. I haven't seen that anywhere.
Because it was made up.
So it seems like he's really say it again.
Because it was made up. It's once again, this is their tactics. This is what they do.
Yeah, and so it seems like he may be trying to call on human tropes against Jewish people historically, but like that doesn't seem like relevant in this context, and so he just looks unhinged. I mean, just totally, completely unhinged. And like I said, when you look at the fact like he made sex toys with his daughter and he sells them with his daughter, I mean, not makes but sells. It's just a weird situation. It's just a really weird situation.
This is just the classic gaslighting, and once again, kind of like how we talked about, it's the deflection of any criticism. And just think about it this way. Let's just say if it was some random white person, let's say maybe like a Dave Rubin or Jesse Waters from Fox News, and they say something that offends, let's say like it offends maybe a Angel Reese or some other kind of a black entertainer or public figure influencer, and then he or she who's black does this entire thing where they have big lips and they're eating watermelon and they're doing all this. Oh, I'm the Tucker Carlson blackie or Tucker Carlson Negro. How would that look? The roles reverse. So what are you achieving here as far as gaslighting and kind of misconstrue what somebody says, and now you're making a buffoonery out of your own people? Same thing applies here. Just sort of the arrogance, the out of touchness of it,
Yeah.
And then once again, you're making like we mentioned before, a lot of other the majority of other Jewish people who are just kind of hard working, keep to themselves. They're not out here trying to like take over globally, that are just trying to live their lives. And guess what? You're just perpetuating more stereotypes and putting them all into that group. So yeah. So I think the Hodge twins hit the nail right on the head. I'd like to watch the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, what I respect about them, they called out both sides. They could have easily been pro-Israel and all this, but they called out what the sort of Zionist crowd is doing, in the same way the LGBTQ crowd. If you say any criticism or they shouldn't be doing drag shows for kids or teaching porn books. Oh, you're homophobic. Like, no, we're just calling behavior of this sector of people who happen to hide behind your group. So same thing here. So yeah, let's get into the rest of this.
See, that's not the depiction of what she was criticizing. You totally mischaracterized her argument. The things that she said that she doesn't feel comfortable about what Israel is doing against Palestinians. What Candace criticized, that depiction that you just portrayed on in your video, was mischaracterized. If you was holding a dead child in your hand, a Palestinian child, then that'll be a depiction of what Candace Owens was criticizing. Yeah. But you totally mischaracterized. You don't want to shed more light on that. You never mentioned anything about, like, Jewish people were murdered by Hamas. It's wrong, and we call it out. But y'all don't want to call out the innocent children, Palestinian children, and women that has nothing to do with Hamas who's being murdered. But you were not willing to call them out. Yeah. And who celebrates somebody getting fired? I mean, it's childish. It's very immature. You know, Don Lemon, when he got fired, I didn't celebrate that. Chris Cuomo, when he got fired, didn't celebrate that. And the governor, Cuomo from New York, didn't celebrate that. I'm not immature. I want to say something. You mischaracterize Candace Owens, but I bet you your depiction of what you portrayed in that video is closer to what the typical Jew is. Their mindset when it comes to Christians and other faiths and other people in the world. I guarantee it. Narcissists. I guarantee. I don't know what was your intent behind this video. Is it supposed to help Jews or something? The way people see Jewish people? Because everywhere I see this video is posted, you're getting roasted. Yeah. Dude's quiet. Yeah. You look like a troll that needs some damn oil in your beard. That's the driest beard I've ever seen. It's so dry, you look like you got a Negro beard. Hey, I want to say this. I'm a black male. Negro, right? I'm a black Negro. I call out Negroes, right? Looks like whenever a Jewish person, Jewish government, do something that's not acceptable, nobody's willing to go out there and criticize their own demographic of people. I'm willing to do that. Jewish people are not. Nobody's called out anything. You got other people criticizing Israel, but you don't have any other Jews criticizing their own government or criticizing what's going on to the Palestinian children and women. I can be objective. What Hamas did that day, totally against. Yeah. What Israel's doing to innocent women, men, and children, yeah, totally against. It's really not that hard. It's not. All right, so do me a favor. Instead of walk around with that Jew Negro beard on your face, go get you some beard oil. Put some lotion in, some Jergens or something. That damn beard is so dry, it's about to fall out.
All right, so yeah, conspiracy brother. I would just like you said, I don't agree with everything Hodge twins say. We're not endorsing Candace Owens, but I kind of talked about this before in the group chat on how, like, okay, Candace Owens may say some off-color things, maybe calling out the black community on some stuff, and may not be as, like, in tune with certain racial stances, but I'm not going to just automatically just toss her aside or other people just because I don't agree with them on one thing. She was still spot on about COVID, about Ukraine corruption, about, a lot of different things, including, her recent Palestine stance. So I just wish that there would be more people, at least especially black people, that because maybe somebody more on the right on the right side of the aisle, they may say one thing you didn't like, but they're spot on about 6 or 7 other things. We can at least find a middle ground instead of somebody trigger you saying one thing you didn't like, and now you're just dismissing that Candace derangement syndrome. So that's all I got to say on that. Anything else, conspiracy brother, before we move to the next?
No, I mean, I think it's something I work on every day. is trying to listen to people that I disagree with in order to hear their arguments, even if it's just to make better arguments against their points of view. It's a work
Yeah,
in progress because there are a lot of people who I just tune out.
right.
Um, a lot of people that I like, I don't want to hear.
And that's
Um,
okay. We're not supposed to ever like agree. Like I'm never gonna keep listening to somebody because they have the same stance on one issue. This stuff with Candace Owens or Hodge twins, I will never agree with on a certain issue. But that doesn't mean in different areas or different topics, I'll still keep an open mind. But I know there's some stuff I'll never agree with them on. But yeah, you're right on the money.
yeah, and so I mean, I think it's a part of being able to be mature enough to say, "Hey, this person, while I may disagree with them vehemently in general, this is a good point." And I would say that on our commentary about the Democratic Party and the way that they have abused the black community,
Hmm.
she is spot on, unequivocally.
Yeah.
Um, and that's it. I mean, I think, you know, she may have a good point on some other topic every once in a while, but I think you know, we'll see.
Yeah. All right, keeping it forward in the Daily Wire metaverse or Daily Wire verse. We got this. Matt Walsh finally addresses the hate speech laws Republicans are passing. So I like to always say that Republicans are nothing more than Democrats driving the speed limit. You know, this is what it kind of reminds me of. So, if Trump was in office, I think there'd be stuff like maybe the border, the gender ideology, a lot of the crazy stuff that would kind of be good to kind of get rid of or slow down. So I feel like the crazy stuff in America would slow down, but a lot of the sort of global bending the knee to the Israel regime and all this other stuff would still be in effect. And of course, we're not getting reparations from either party. So that kind of just remind me of that. Like Democrats, Republicans, Democrats just drive over speed limit, and Republicans like to just drive under 5. So yeah, conspiracy brother, what was your want to give us a what was your reason for this video, or what are we gonna break down here?
Well, so this one is it's a video about, as the title says, recent laws passed by Republican governors. Believe the most recent is Abbott in Texas, but I think DeSantis passed one in Florida.
Mm,
Christy Nome in South Dakota, I believe, passed one. And there are increasingly bills being passed around the country in red states to establish safe spaces for Jewish students or Jewish people on college campuses.
mm.
And Anomaly, who was the YouTuber
in my adult life was
who
to see a
made
therapist.
this video, is kind of just giving a breakdown a bit of it. I think the
Mhm.
video was kind of long. Yeah,
Well,
so
yeah, we ain't gotta watch the whole thing. I was gonna maybe
yeah,
just skip through.
you can let Matt Walsh, because one of the things Ben Shapiro says about Candace Owens, he was interviewed by what's the gay guy? Um
Republican gay guy.
Dave Rubin. Yeah, Dave Rubin.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um he says that there is an Overton window at the Daily Wire. There's a range of acceptable discourse. And I thought that was interesting because you claim to have been a free speech platform. Then you say there's a range of acceptable discourse, which, I mean, in theory, is perfectly understandable. But the acceptable discourse limit is pushed when an employee says, hey, Palestinian children and women shouldn't be getting murdered, you know. And so I think it's interesting that he frames it that way, and that um
Mm,
that's how things play out. You want to say There's an acceptable limit. And then portray yourself as anyhow differently than the blue-haired, nose ring, half head shaved, they them pronoun college student who says they don't want Ben Shapiro on campus because he hurts their feelings and that words are violence. So it's a contradiction. It's a hypocrisy. And I think Mark Dice, I think it was Mark Dice, says the reason Ben Shapiro only debates 20-year-olds. It might have been Adam Schultz, Andrew Schultz, the comedian. Says the reason Ben Shapiro only debates college students is because that's the only people he can handle, he can win with, because whenever he debates somebody his own age, he always gets destroyed. And so, I mean, it seems to track. It definitely seems to track with this.
Yeah. I'm definitely. I've been following Anomaly off and on. Like my conservative brother Daily account I got kicked off of Twitter a little while back. But yeah, I remember Anomaly really well. But yeah, I think he's just pointing out.
Got kicked off of free speech Twitter.
I know, right?
Wow.
Yeah. The bird
almost like
isn't
nothing's
free,
changed.
is what Elon says. Bird really isn't free.
Almost like nothing's changed.
I know, right? But yeah. So I commend Anomaly because he has long kind of called out both sides of the aisle, especially since I could kind of say I was able to say before October 7th confidently, like, Republicans still have a history of censorship, during the Bush years and the whole Iraq propaganda. They had their level of censorship, but I could at least confidently say before October 7th that at least Republicans favored free speech a little more. At least I was naive enough to think that, and then after October 7th, that all changed. So yeah, this is just really great things that are being called out. And once again, the context is like you should be able to debate, like, the whole Israel-Palestine conflict. I just know that there were videos like early on where there's like pro-Palestine protesters like yelling at kids and like, just doing all types of stuff. But, just because you feel uncomfortable because you want to run from debate, that don't mean that you're getting like Jew hated on. So I think it takes a fine balance where, yeah, you could still have debate and criticism, and that doesn't mean you're getting hate speech or violent, and it goes from both sides, you know. And there were incidents even in New York where there were like shopkeepers, people like protesting in front of shopkeepers just because they were Jewish, and try to tie that to Israel, which I didn't agree with. But at the same time, like, we just got to learn there's a fine balance between debate and then you're just taking things out on groups of people just because they're connected with people around the world. But yeah, these are just some great points where I'm not for any sort of safe space on either side of the aisle. So safe spaces, I'm not down for that. Once again, a lot of the censorship we're seeing here. An anti-Semitic tweet, Ted Cruz accuses Bloomberg of owning the media. So now we're getting it from this side. So yeah, I'm sure this is a really good breakdown of a video. But yeah,
you could play some of it if you wanted to, a couple minutes, or you could just leave a link to it in the description when you do the description and title and stuff. Because I mean, I think it still shows, it's like you're saying, it's still a good video to see how much both sides do it, because Bloomberg literally owns a media company. So, I mean, is the implication by saying Bloomberg owns the media that he owns all of it? No, I don't think so.
Right.
But that's the way, like I talked about earlier, the way they are able to obfuscate, because they intentionally decontextualize any negative comments against them, and they try to reconfigure it as anti-Semitism. Bloomberg owns the media. That's anti-Semitic. Well, what does Bloomberg do? Well, he owns Bloomberg News and Bloomberg Online and Bloomberg. You know what I'm saying? So he owns the media company. You know what I'm saying? He owns the Bloomberg network. Well, that doesn't seem so anti-Semitic. even like I said, when you understand that the amount of people of Jewish people who control media, uh, entertainment, uh, government, all that, it's just interesting. At the very least, it's interesting. It's an interesting coincidence, and as I always say, there are no coincidences.
Just uncomfy
You know,
truths. You know,
right?
small plug. All right, so yeah, good stuff. Once again, anybody wants to look it up, Anomaly on YouTube, and just look up this video. We'll try and include that. We'll try and include that in the description as well. All right, so next one, kind of a little bit more of the
I put
same.
I put a YouTube, I mean a Twitter video from a guy named Turncoat Don,
Uh-huh.
and I think that it would be cool to watch. It's a couple minute video,
This
and
says
Jimmy
they
Dore
did
broke
what?
it down. It's from Turncoat Don. It's a Twitter video. It's a Ben Shapiro versus
Oh,
Ben Shapiro, and it really just shows the hypocrisy of who he is.
oh yeah, that's right.
That'd be cool to show.
Okay, okay,
If
yeah,
you
yeah. I see. Hold on, let me go back to
yeah.
refresh the page.
Because when you really get down and look at the way that our politicians are willing to fund the Israeli government, right? They wouldn't even
Mhm.
exist without the United States. And so, as much as people might say, oh, the United States hasn't paid reparations to Israel, we didn't have anything to do with the Holocaust. If what we're doing as a
Mhm.
nation isn't reparations, I don't know what you call it, because we are almost singularly responsible for their military and for their government's existence. And as I've talked about before, the United States government funds around the world countries' governments to provide their citizens with programs and services that we couldn't even dream of in our country. Right. And Nick Cruz put it the best that I'd heard, so I won't take any credit for it. But he said America is basically a cuck. We're cuck to Israel in
Yep.
the completest definition. You pay, like if a guy had a wife and he paid, he bought her nice things, took care of her, nice car, nice house, not having to work, all of her expenses are paid, and she's just banging some other dude, doing whatever she wants to do. That is the relationship between the United States and Israel. The United States almost singularly supports the Israeli government with weapons, with training, with money. And then Israel just says, hey, man, F you. I'll do whatever I want. I'll bomb whoever I want.
Mhm.
I'll get you embroiled in international conflicts because, who cares? Who cares about you? And all these U.S. politicians, like sycophants, fall over themselves to say, hey, um, um, we got to support Israel. We have to support Israel. Israel has a right to exist. And it's just like, what is the deal, man? What is the deal? What is the
All
deal
right,
with this? But this
all
is
right,
a funny video.
all right, cool. And then after that, we'll get into the they did what video. Then we got some other links. Yeah. So once again, guys, my computer's running a little slow. Apologies. You're watching slash listening to Uncomfy Truths. I'm your co-host, Conservative Brother Daily, here with Conspiracy Brother for episode 23. We've been at it since I think mid-spring 2022, and you can follow us on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble, and YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble, and we live stream bi-weekly on Fridays. I mean, wait, today's Saturday. Saturday. All right, so here's the homie Shapiro. All right.
If that doesn't scare the hell out of Jews, I'm not sure exactly what will. These campuses, which are supposed places of safety and openness and
Rewind it
diversity,
just so we can
but when
type
it
it in
comes to
again.
Jewish students feeling,
Can you hear? Can you hear the audio?
Yeah, I was just gonna say start it all the way over so we could get it from the top. But yeah, I can
All right,
hear you.
all right, here we go.
Now, we've been seeing these massive marches all over the United States in favor of Hamas. If that doesn't scare the hell out of Jews, I'm not sure exactly what will. These campuses, which are supposed places of safety and openness and diversity, but when it comes to Jewish students feeling, just a little threatened by people who are now defending mass murder of Jews, and then, of course, there's nothing to be done. Are these people who are marching in favor of Hamas that you would want working for your company? On campuses across the nation, Jews have been surrounded. Jews are being threatened all over the world, but we got to make sure that the people who join the threats, those are the people who are protected. If they are not citizens and they support Hamas, they should be deported. These folks don't think like you. They don't think like you. In the United Kingdom, Jewish students are now afraid to go to class. I know. You are in your dorm and you're ensconced there and you feel so comfortable with all your friends who tell you that you're just a great person and all your beliefs are exactly right. The last thing you want is somebody invading your campus and saying things that you disagree with, because that's just tyrannical and awful. You shouldn't have to feel like you're wrong ever. You should always feel like you're right. Well, toughen up, sweetheart. Bottom line is that it's time for you to learn that there are lots of differing opinions. Discussion is good for you. It makes your views stronger. It makes your views more durable. It is that exchange of ideas that actually makes an intellectual community worth having. If you're not willing to engage in that intellectual community, you're in the wrong place. If you want a safe space, we can find a padded cell for you somewhere. If you want life to just be a giant teddy bear, go back to being a child. But if you want to be an adult in the United States of America, you're going to have to deal with the fact that there are people who disagree, and that's a good thing to discuss. There are only one group of people that want safe spaces so that they never have to hear from anybody of a different ideology or political persuasion. Those people are called fascists. Okay, you've got a bunch of fascists, damn fascists on this campus, who are trying to shut down political debate and trying to cloister themselves in this little cocoon of stupidity so they don't have to debate anyone or think about issues outside their kin so that they can feel comfortable. Guess what? Life isn't about feeling comfortable. Life is about bettering yourself. Get off your ass, you stupid pansies.
and just think about, he says life is not about being comfortable, it's about bettering yourself. Get off your ass, you stupid pansies. And I'm just, the way he looks, the way he speaks, you couldn't find a bigger pansy in America who doesn't have sex with men, at least that I know of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's got to be the least masculine man you can think of in the world who isn't a bottom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Got them
Isn't a
feminine
stereotypical
qualities.
bottom.
Yeah.
But he has all that smoke and heat for college kids. But when it's something he cares about, even there's videos of him talking about black people, saying, talking about how black people underperform academically and whatever. Even like the Hodge twin says, we talk about black people all the time when they do stuff wrong. We talk about Negroes all the time when they do stuff wrong.
Right.
But when you are offended, all that is out the window. And I almost messed up my promise to my dad. But all that stuff is out the window. You want safe spaces. You want people not to feel uncomfortable because of who they are. And how is that any different than a person who believes that they're a sklee-skler or a zimzer or a they them or a the girl who lives a TikTok who says that she's trisexual. How is that any different? They legitimately feel in their hearts, in their minds, that their lives are in danger from your words. How is that any different? If I'm going to concede that Jewish people need a safe space, everybody need one. Black people, Hispanics, Asians, LGBT, all of them. Everybody can just live cloistered in their little silos,
Right.
away from the violence of other thoughts.
I say no safe spaces, no protected class. Because once again,
there shouldn't be, right?
Right.
But what I'm saying is, if his argument is that Jewish people need a safe space because people don't like Israel in America, of all places, right? Black people who complain about the United States government are complaining about the treatment that they faced at the hands of America or in America, right?
Right.
You're getting upset because American people don't like Israel in America. Not that American people are taking trips or trains, planes, or boats over to Israel to wreak havoc, to destroy the country, or to undermine its government. No, but that American students on American college campuses in America don't like Israel. And this is a problem. And you know where your safe space can be? Brandeis. Brandeis is a Jewish university, a historically Jewish university. Go to Brandeis. All of you, go to Brandeis. If that's what you need, I don't know of any other Jewish universities, but if you need a place to feel safe in this country from the criticism and ideas of others on college campuses, all of y'all go to Brandeis.
Yeah, that's the sad part. Because even going there, you got a little pro-Palestinian protesters. They're gonna follow you over there. But I just think the whole, like you mentioned, conspiracy brother, safe spaces is irrelevant. Protected classes is irrelevant. Once again, Ben Shapiro, if you have the facts on your side and stand up for what you believe in, guess what? You should stand up, and whoever's coming up to you, or your Jewish kids feeling uncomfortable about, because people have legitimate gripe on Israel, you stand your ground and you debate them. You don't go running and doing the whole safe space routine that the left does. All right. Now, once again, if it ends up being pro-Palestinian protesters causing fights or physically assaulting or damaging property, that's different. Okay, there needs to be a line drawn in the sand for that. But last time I checked, people have the right to protest. They have the right to freedom of speech as far as being in a public square. And if you're getting upset because people rip down posters or they're simply protesting, and that makes anyone who's pro-Israel feel unsafe, I'm sorry, but that's the real world. No one's assaulting you. No one is doing any sort of physical violence. People have the right to protest their gripes about Israel. That's why I wanted to say.
And Matt Walsh says this in the video, that video with Anomaly. If anyone is breaking any laws, there are already laws in place to remedy that. So if a Jewish student is assaulted, there's already a law against that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's not
we
cool.
don't need to we don't need to create new laws that protect people from differences of opinion. And you don't get to call yourself someone who appreciates diversity of thought or of free speech, because that's not even free speech absolutism, because we're not saying that you should be able to use slurs against Jewish people, just that you should be able to, in the United States of America, which is not Jerusalem or Israel, that you should be able to criticize a foreign country, as I've said many times on this show. You should, in America, of all places on this planet, you should be able to criticize any country on the planet, especially the United States, because we have the First Amendment.
Amen.
But you have these pieces of crap whose claim to fame, as Andrew Schultz said, is debating 20-year-old college kids who, are having a 20-year-old or younger who have either apparent or implied mental issues and or have just moved out of their parents' home for the first time. And he's either 40 or almost 40. And you want to portray yourself as some type of maverick radical thinker, radical critical thinker. That ain't it, man. That's not it. It's hypocrisy. It's a slap in the face to everybody who you've debated, who you called a pansy. Whenever you talked about black people and you debated black people and you tried to discredit the information that explains the situation concerning black people in this country or reparations, and my government gives billions of dollars a year to Israel for no reason, you're a hypocrite. I've never liked Ben Shapiro anyway because his voice. He sounds like a cartoon
Yeah, the
character.
voices. Yes. Yeah.
And he talks fast. And what he reminds me of is a guy in school who, you know, would when you were just getting into an argument, he would argue with you and he would push you and push you and push you. And then when you hit him, he'd tell the teacher.
Yep.
That's who he is. But you have, and I've heard about this from different Jewish people online, but I guess at Jewish schools, at Hebrew schools, they go out of their way to talk about the Holocaust, to portray themselves as victims of a global tragedy. And I'm not making a commentary on whether that is accurate or not. But what I'm saying is when it comes to black people in reparations for slavery or Jim Crow or any of the ancillary effects of our condition in this country, of our existence in this country, we're always taught to get over it. But Jewish people at their schools and in their synagogues are taught constantly that they were victims of a crime. And whenever you say something against them, you are portrayed as some type of racist or anti-Semitic individual. That ain't right. When Kyrie Irving said, you know, I'm a Jew or I'm Jewish or how can I hate what I am? And he got a lot of backlash. When Kanye West said he was Jew, right? They met backlash. How? Why? Because they have attempted to organizationally, when you look at the ADL, look at the ways that they communicate, because they have tried to organizationally portray themselves as victims. Nobody ever undermines the Holocaust and the impact that it had on Jewish people or the long-lasting effects that it has and why they need a whole country. How come nobody's setting up to try to give Black Americans a country or even a state? Right? What makes the Jewish Holocaust so different than the Holocaust that happened to Black people in this country? Except for the fact that the Jewish Holocaust was about 10 times less length of time compared to but you hear Jewish people say all the time, oh yeah, we've been oppressed all over the world for hundreds of years. That's the same BS that they talk about. Black people, you don't get to talk about slavery. You weren't a slave. But here the Jewish people talk about the Holocaust. They talk about Egypt, which there's no archaeological evidence to substantiate that Jews ever lived in Egypt in any great numbers. There's no archaeological evidence to substantiate the book of Exodus was archaeologically possible. Now, I'm not making a commentary on the Bible or God or any of that. What I'm saying is archaeological evidence for the Exodus story in the Bible, which is the mass migration of Jews out of Israel to Egypt. I mean, from out of Egypt to Israel. There's nothing to substantiate that. Yet they claim they built the pyramids. They claim that they was oppressed in Europe in the Middle Ages, during the Inquisition, during the pogroms in the Eastern Europe and Russia. And they always fall back on some victim card. But when I'm telling you about something that happened in the country that I'm still living in and still suffering in, you want to tell me that I'm being a victim. Ben Shapiro has made an argument. I've heard this. It was a Jewish chick.
Good point.
It was a Jewish chick on Twitter, and her name was Communism Kills. And like she dated a dude who was like a white supremacist or a Nazi. It was kind of funny, but like I guess he ended up dumping her. But like this guy was like a neo-Nazi, and she's Jewish. And so she said something on Twitter. This was years ago. I had a Twitter in a long time. And she said something like, my family shouldn't have to pay reparations. We got here in the 30s. We had nothing to do with that. I said, all right. So I just hit her up on Twitter. And we communicated occasionally. Like, she wasn't so big that she didn't communicate. She didn't have a check. So like, she didn't communicate with regular people. She communicated with me like a couple times. I wouldn't say we had like some great chemistry or dialogue, but you know, she wasn't so big that she wouldn't communicate with me. I said, all right.
Right.
I said, so let's say I go to Germany. I move there. My kids are born there or whatever. And I say, I don't want to have to pay reparations to Israel because I had nothing to do with the Holocaust. Is that legitimate? Do you support me in my right to do that? To say that I don't want my tax money going to the state of Israel because I had nothing to do with the Holocaust? My black, you know?
Yeah.
She didn't respond. Because when you move to a country, you assume its burdens. That's just that's the contract. When you come to America, what do we say about illegals? What are some of the biggest gripes? You take the jobs, you depress the wages, and you don't pay taxes and you get benefits. You're fundamentally not following the contract. The contract is you pay taxes. The contract is you don't take social services unless you paid into them. Now, and I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, but I'm saying the American psyche. Unless you've paid into social services, you don't pull from them. And 3, you don't depress the wages by doing work that American citizens wouldn't do for the price that you would do it.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go. If I move to Japan, I got to learn to separate my trash. I got to learn to be a certain type of clean and quiet in a way that I don't have to be in the United States. I got to learn to bow a lot in a way that I don't have to in the United States. If I move to the Middle East, there's a certain level of civility and decorum that I must exercise in my daily life because this is a different country that I don't have to when I'm in the United States. Same goes for moving to a country. If you move to the United States, you assume its burdens. If you move to England, you assume its burden. If you move to Japan or China, you assume its burdens. If I move to Israel, if I move to Germany, I assume its burdens. And so you don't get to pick and choose when you think you have to participate in what's going on here. But this is, again, what I'm talking about. You have people in the highest levels of government controlling the levers of power. And they do things to make sure that the vendettas, might have been Anomaly too. Pat Buchanan talked about this, how there are all these little enclaves of foreign people in this country, and they have no desire to assimilate into America. And a lot of times you hear about it like with Hispanics, right? Mexicans specifically. But in Cuba, it's the same. In Cuba, in Miami, it's the same way. You have a lot of, in South Florida, you have a lot of Cubans who escaped communism, who were wealthy before communism, who had a vendetta against Fidel Castro, who have used that as an opportunity to get into office, like Marco Rubio, and to make policies that negatively affect Cuba at the detriment of the United States. After World War II, during the Cold War, you had a lot of people from Eastern Europe who had a vendetta against the Soviet Union, who navigated U.S. foreign and domestic policy in such a way that it would create tensions with the Soviet Union and make America less safe, because America has always been used as the attack dog by all these different countries. Even now, you see Emmanuel Macron, you see David Cameron, who was at one point in time the Prime Minister of the UK, coming to speak with Donald Trump about supporting Ukraine. Why? If this is important to you all as a country, or as a group of countries of Western nations, you support Ukraine. We don't have free healthcare here. You got it in the UK. We don't have a subsidized education system at the post-secondary level, but you have it in the UK. There are a lot of things in the UK that you guys have that we don't have. And so if you want to take monies from your people and give them to Ukraine or give them to anybody else, that's your prerogative. But you shouldn't be here trying to hat in hand beg the United States to do these things, because we, the people, don't have it. We don't have it. We tapped out. We've been tapped out for a very long time. It's just so many of us were asleep that we didn't even know about it. But we're tapped out, fresh out. We fresh out of F's to give. As Tariq Nasheed would say, hold your own nuts.
Hey man, brother, I can't even follow that. Pretty much summed it all up. Yeah, Ben Shapiro, shame on you, bro. All right, so we got this next one. I remember you sent this to me. Solar geoengineering experiment in San Francisco injected salt crystals into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight. The project was not widely announced to avoid public backlash. This comes from our friend over at Memology 101. Pretty funny stuff. Conspiracy brother, any insight you want to give on this before we play the clip?
Yeah, so again, this just shows how you can never be sure about what the government is doing. The reason, as they say in here, it was not publicly announced to avoid public backlash. So public backlash is just backlash from the United States citizens saying, we don't want our tax money used to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so even though the government says, oh, it was just sounding rockets, what does that mean? What does that mean? And why? Now, we read that article, so I get what it says, but why? Why are we doing this? What does it mean and why?
And
how
why
have
do
we
you
gotten
feel
to
the
the point
need?
where?
And the project was not widely announced to avoid, like, why don't? So you already anticipate the public backlash, so maybe that should be a hint. And why all the secrecy? You should be transparent, accountable. If that says nothing but the best intentions for us, then there may not be any public backlash if you just be honest and tell us what's going on. Just my thought. But government's not going to do that. All right, I'm gonna play this. Oh, is this a video or just a?
It should be a short. It should play
Nothing's
something.
happening. Oh no. I'm about to reload it on a second. Yeah, Memology's it's a good channel to follow. It's funny stuff on there. All right, let's see what we got. Computer's running a little slow. Apologies. Once again, you are listening and watching Uncomfy Truths, episode 23. I'm your co-host, Conservative Brother Daily. Here with Conspiracy Brother. Okay, this isn't really. Yeah, I don't know what happened. This is. I don't understand YouTube Shorts sometimes. Okay, all right. We'll just. You get the point. All right. So,
Yeah,
fortunately,
we'll leave it there. But I mean, again, they're doing things without our permission that we haven't asked them to do. I like that little drawing I found. I don't remember how I found it, but
yeah.
I'm half full. Democratic Party, I'm half full. Republican Party, I'm half empty. The rest of us, I think this is piss.
That couldn't sum it up any better.
I almost like to get that tattooed on my body, but I wouldn't want to have Democrat or Republican stuck on me for the rest
That's
of my life.
definitely a T-shirt. I'm getting that as a T-shirt
Yeah.
at some point. I'm gonna just slap that
Then we
on a
can try to
T-shirt.
find the artist
Yeah,
responsible for it, because
that sums it up.
that is hilarious. I'm half full.
Well, we got a couple left. Any of these you want to maybe we should do a couple more, or
You could bring up the World Happiness Survey. The one I was going to do, looking at Israel and going into like their genetic history. I want us to do that, but maybe we'll do it next show.
Okay. All right. So you want to just anything else? We're just gonna probably wrap it up.
You can do the world happiness ranking, and then we can wrap it up after that.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
What's this about? What's this going on here?
It's just interesting looking at the world happiness rankings. So if you scroll down, you should be able to find the 2024 rankings, so you can see on a country by country basis what's the top 10 or top 20 happiest countries, who they are, and what that looks like, and what the criteria is.
Let me guess. The more kind of the smaller economy, the smaller the GDP, or the poorer or less resources, a quote unquote second or third world, I bet the happier they are. And I bet US is the most miserable.
I don't know if it tracks exactly that way.
Oh. All right. Got this.
Keep going, because it doesn't break down by age. Let's see if it's on this page. They do a breakdown by age. Because the reason it was particular, keep going. The reason it was particularly troubling is because of what it said about the United States.
All right, here we go. How do happiness rankings vary by age group?
So the happiness rankings for young under 30, figure 2.3 does the same for over 60. Now, there was a better graph than this. Let me see.
I think that might be my browser. I might have to update my Safari. Some of these images aren't showing.
I didn't download it. I didn't download the updated graph. Let's see. Okay, yeah, go down. Keep going down more, and you'll see it. Keep going down more.
Those images are showing up.
There it is. There it is. Go up. So keep going up. Keep going up. Keep going up. So go up till you get to the top. So what? There you go. It says the ranking of life evaluation by age group. So from 2021 to 2023, all ages, Israel ranks number 5. The young rank number 2 in the level of happiness in the world. Their young people are the number 2 happiest in the world. Their lower middle are number 2 in the world. Their upper middle are number 7. And their old are 18. So the happiest is the young, and the least happiest is the old. Scroll down till you get to the United States.
Oh, here we go. Right here.
Look at these countries that are above us. Costa Rica, Kuwait. Look, Australia and New Zealand are happier than us, and they just 4 years ago, they were locking people up and dragging them off to concentration camps in the desert. They're happier than us.
They should have took the jab.
Costa Rica's happier than us. Canada, same thing. They weren't dragging people off, but Canada, I mean, you've all heard about the truckers and the overreach of the government shutting down people's bank accounts. They're happier than we are. Czechia, which is like the Czech Republic, Ireland, Lithuania, Slovenia, United States. What is our overall rank? We're number 23. America is not even in the top 20. Our young people rank 62 happy. Our middle rank 42. Upper middle 17. And the old are happiest with 10. And so what that shows you, the lower middle is the least happy, it says. Even though I believe that's the young on the other list, right? 62. So young people in the United States are 62 on the happiness scale. Can't afford college, can't get a good job, can't buy a house, don't have health care. But we pay all this money to a lot of those countries on this list we give aid to above us, but especially Israel. So we are providing a country like Israel the opportunity for their citizens to be the number 2 happiest, even if you just take the whole number, the number 5 happiest on earth. And we're number 23. How does that make sense? How can number 23 be helping number 5 be happy? You're a cuck. That's how. Just like those dudes who like to see their wives having sex with other men. That's who we are.
Ooh.
The United States is a cuck to Israel. There's no other way to look at it. Like I said, I got to give credit to Nick Cruz at RBN for placing it this way because it's the truth. You can't see it any other way. And that video I showed you, that guy Chaim Asarloff or whatever his name is, we can go into him, but he was like a socialist, nationalist, Israeli Zionist. And so like he agreed with Marx, but he split off with Marx because he believed that Marx should spend more time trying to create an Israeli nationalism. And so I guess from what I heard from Nico House is basically that Israel operates as a socialist country under, perfect conditions, basically, or normal conditions. I wouldn't even say perfect. I don't know. But how a socialist country would operate if the United States government wasn't trying to overthrow it at every turn, that's how Israel operates, is basically what he was trying to say, because it was established as a Jewish socialist or a nationalist socialist country. The guy Chaim Asarloff or whatever, or Sarlaroff, even received Jews in the 30s from Germany via Hitler. You see what I'm saying?
That explains a lot. Explains a lot.
Our country is literally falling apart. Bridges, the roads, all over. Airports, everywhere. Planes are literally losing parts as they fly in the sky. And we, a nation, are paying money to make sure that Israel is the number 5 happiest on earth, that their youth are number 2 happy, and ours are 62 and 42, the future of America.
It's not good.
I made a joke that the reason the Israeli old are so upset versus the young is because they're going to die, so they can't live in that paradise anymore. And the reason that the American old are so happy is because they're going to die, so they ain't got to live in the hell no more. That was a joke that I thought about based on the way the data flips. You get old to the point where you realize it's almost over. That's what happens when you live in America. You're happy that it's almost over. That you've worked for 50 years, 40 years, whatever. You didn't have good health care. You never had a living wage. You didn't have dependable transportation. Housing was messed up. Inflation was out of this world. And nothing was ever good. But at least you get to die for free.
Yeah, couldn't. I don't think you could have summed it up any better, conspiracy brother. Uh, Thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna wrap it up. I know we didn't have time to get into. There's a lot of developments in the sort of southern border migrant crisis. You know, you got legal migrants who can now carry firearms. We got squatter epidemic in different states, but we can kind of get into that next week. I might do a
Right.
little daily little CBD rant on that. A lot to unpack there, but yeah, conspiracy brother. It's episode 23 in the bag. Um, Thank you guys for tuning in. I know our audience right now is still small but mighty, and we're just gonna keep growing this thing out. We just got to keep bringing the uncomfortable conversations. And yeah, and I got a few other spicy topics we're gonna get into next time, but yeah, that's all I got, man. Conspiracy.
Yeah. So another one that I would like us to be able to get to, but it's always time constraints, is the House passing, the Republican House passing the FISA
Mhm.
without making any adjustments to it. Um, you know, um, we're gonna have to get into that eventually, but I have to
Yeah,
wait until next episode, or we'll see
yeah.
something. But
Just throw that in the Google Doc, like group. Send that to me over Group Me, or throw it in the little Google Doc, and then I'll have those articles lined up for next week.
okay, and yeah, I mean, there are always developments happening all around extremely quickly, and so it's it's a process to try to stay on top of it and hit them while they're relevant. Um,
Mhm.
and it's difficult. It's just difficult to do. It's difficult to do. So,
Yeah, there's so much
um,
going on, and we all got like jobs and family and a life and things. So it's not like we think of everything going on. We're not like in a newsroom. So it's good to at least touch what topics we can. And other topics will be there next episode. So uh, great work as always, man. And yeah, comfy truths, episode 23 in the bag. So,
oh yeah. So, yeah. With that, hope some of this has inspired you to look deeper into the information that we've put up and put out, and continue to be a critical thinker legitimately. Continue to push back against the charlatans and hypocrites on both sides who would have you believe that their crusade against free speech or violation of constitutional rights or sanity is somehow justified or justifiable. Right? Don't fall for it. Don't believe it. Know better, learn more, do better, be better. And eventually, we can overthrow this whole system of backwards oppression and handed out American money while America crumbles around our feet, allowing people to come up from, illegal immigrants to come up and destroy our cities. And I'm not saying this, in a racially tinged way. What I'm saying is literally overpopulating our cities beyond the capacity with which they have and destroying them. Our government has destroyed a lot of these countries in South America and Central America. And so those people are coming up here, like the one guy who was like teaching people how to squat. He was Venezuelan. But like I said before, you want to say, oh, Venezuela's socialist, and you do everything you can to undermine the country. And then those people come up to America because all y'all have done is talk about how great America is. Well, what do you expect them to do? So we have to push back against our own government, destroying these countries and destabilizing them as best we can, and not falling for the BS, right? Because we need to take care of America. This is our priority. This is where we live. We don't have allegiances to some other place. So, with that, I'll close it out. Thanks for joining us. Peace.
peace.